rifles had come a long way from the Kentucky. To find out how far, you've got to go back hundreds of years.
If you're firing black powder, there is a great big puff of black smoke that says, "Here I am! I'm the sniper! Shoot me!"
In the 21st century, soldiers go into battle with state-of-the-art equipment costing billions of dollars. Snipers are at the cutting edge of this technology. The rifles they use rarely jam, fire at the touch of a trigger, and can kill a man a mile and a half away. 200 years ago, generations of men struggled with flintlocks, and flintlocks were slow and unreliable.
The sniper is afraid to go out with something that your life depends on when you're not sure whether or not it's going to function properly.
The flintlock was flawed. Powder had to be tipped into the priming pan each time it was loaded. This took time.
It takes 45 to 60 seconds to make each shot. Black powder for the main charge. He would then pour that powder into the muzzle of the rifle. A piece of patch over the end of the muzzle. And now you can ram all of that down from the muzzle down to the breech. Next, pour very fine priming powder into the pan. With a very light touch, this rifle will go off toward the target.
Flintlocks had another weakness. Their priming was external, and there was always a flash before the main charge was fired. Something quicker and better was needed. Something that nixed flintlocks. In the early 19th century, they were killed off. Not by a gunsmith, not by a soldier, but by a Presbyterian minister.
The Reverend Forsyth was a Scottish clergyman who in his spare time was a keen hunter. The major problem he discovered was that the flintlock that he used for his hunting, the flash from it gave away his position to the birds, who were able to fly away in time so that his bullet missed the target. So what he did to rectify this was he paved the way for the development of the percussion cap.
Forsyth engineered a small explosive cap. Struck by the hammer, it would send a small hot jet into the barrel of the rifle and fire the main charge.
This is more secure, more reliable, and above all, it's quicker.
50 years later, the next major advance. The marriage of percussion caps with the very latest technology. Breech loading mechanisms. Traditionally, guns were loaded at the muzzle. This meant forcing the projectile down a long tube. Time-consuming stuff, particularly if the gun had spiral ridges from rifling. Breech loaders were different. No complicated loading at the muzzle. A drop lock or bolt action mechanism allowed bullets to be fed directly into the breech. The closing of a bolt or the block would chamber the round. The modern rifle was born.
You open the breech, you got a round from your pouch, you put it in, close the breech and fire.
Breech loading also meant that the bullet fit tighter in the bore. Less gas could escape past the bullet on firing, and velocity increased massively. During the Civil War, the Sharps rifle was the most deadly breech loader on the battlefield. Its mechanism meant that skilled marksmen could lie on their belly. A landmark moment in sniping history. Lying down makes sniping more accurate because the gun is stabilized, and the sniper is a smaller target for return fire. Just a few well-positioned riflemen could tie down a far larger force.
At the Battle of Gettysburg, General Buford shows up with 2 brigades of cavalry, and those 2 Yankee brigades hold off Harry Heth's division until the 1st Corps can come up to relieve them. If they didn't have the Sharps carbine, they would have been run out of that position.
For 30 years, rifles like the Sharps dominated the battlefield. But the arrival of smokeless propellants took sniping to the next level. For hundreds of years, black powder had been the explosive charge behind all projectiles. But it was far from perfect. It left a black residue in the barrel that caused them to jam. the powder was also highly unstable.
If the black powder gets a little bit damp, or if it's been in storage for a while, instead of getting a bang, you get a fizzle, or you get nothing at all.
For snipers, there was an even bigger problem.
If you're firing black powder from a clever hiding place, there's a great big puff of black smoke that says, "Here I am! I'm the sniper! Shoot me!"
This fog of war was lifted in 1887 when Alfred Nobel created a new generation of propellant, a smokeless gunpowder called ballistite. 3 times more powerful than black powder, it massively increased the effective range of snipers. 300 yards became 1,000 yards. Just as important, this gunpowder evolution also reduced the amount of white smoke. For snipers, it was payday.
You've got cordites, smokeless powder in your weapon, and you fire it, the enemy will hear the crack, they'll hear the thump. They might watch the general drop down as a pile of useless jelly. But where did the shot come from? Don't know.
By World War I, the marriage of smokeless powder and breech loading created a golden generation of high-velocity bolt-action rifles. Long-range, targeted sniping became a key feature of trench warfare. The Americans had the Springfield 03, the Germans had the Mauser 98, and the British had the Lee Enfield. In the hands of a trained marksman, each rifle was an executioner's tool. No one was safe, and nowhere was safe. Not in the trenches, not deep behind the lines, not even in the bath.
There's a famous story about a British officer who was such a gentleman and such a good chap that he refused to shoot a German officer who was caught taking a bath.
The British officer was poet Robert Graves, who recalled the moment in his famous memoirs. A romantic by nature, he couldn't bring himself to shoot the German.
He thought as a gentleman it was beneath him to do so, so he asked his sergeant if he would take the shot, and his sergeant said, "Jolly good, of course I will."
The shot, made from a forward trench, reveals how technologically advanced rifles had become. In an age of total war, snipers now had the tools to deliver death to the enemy where he was least expecting it.
I think it shows you that the sniper is the unseen reaper on the battlefield.
But the reaper needs a scythe, and for snipers, that scythe is the bullet. It's the bullet that does the dirty work. From the simple lead ball to today's high-caliber rounds, every step of bullet evolution has delivered more and more devastation.
In the event of a headshot, people don't realize this and probably expect just to see a small hole in the person's head, when a high-velocity bullet will really just almost tear someone's head completely off.
For hundreds of years, bullets this powerful didn't exist. The lead ball, grandfather of all ammo, got dropped into rifles everywhere.
All of these rifles were handmade by riflesmiths, so that meant that every single one of them had a different caliber. When they purchased the rifle from the gunsmith, each one would have to come with its own bullet mold. So each rifleman would have to make his own bullets by the campfire. It's a time-consuming process that has to be done one at a time.